Good morning, everybody. I figured I'd just wear a nice dress shirt because that's what I used to use for my past career, pretty much. So there's certain information that I got to give to certain people that are my relatives, so they're at least aware of certain situations. Okay, so when I was in college at a young age, because I was just out of high school, I had to do some digging on my family history. I found out that my last name, that was Gachins, was not Gachins, it was Gita. My other grandfather's last name was not Grantner, was Gardner. So when I did a lot of heavy research on a lot of this stuff, when I started digging, I hit certain areas where I hit walls. And I was at certain state universities, SUNY or city university colleges to get certain degrees, and I ended up finding out that a lot of these Ivy League schools had certain information. Now, I'm not going to get into detail why they had that information. I'm just going to explain that they had information that I had the right to know, because my grandfather's history, well, my dad's father's history, was not really given to me. He was here for a certain amount of years, and there was certain information that I wanted to know because his history, his job history, was not really explained to my grandmother. And I had a lot of relatives that basically, when I met a lot of my relatives at these Ivy League universities, they told me that a lot of the stuff that he had to deal with, and even my other, not my grandfather, but my great-grandfather that was close to my grandfather's age, both of them had to do stuff for the federal government, and they had to do stuff for certain foreign agencies during World War II times. So I'm aware of certain information. Now, I don't leak out people's information. There's certain information that I know about, but I don't dive into people's business. But what I did dive into is I found out that my grandfather had a hedge fund license. The other thing that I also found out is that he wasn't... what was explained to me was he wasn't going from job to job to job. He was at one organization, and nobody, my father didn't know what he was doing, my aunt didn't know what he was doing, my uncle didn't know what he was doing. He had like a hidden life that nobody explained to me. But at one of the universities that apparently he taught, which I went over there, he had heavy research on what he was doing. And certain things that I was looking up, that I was doing research because I was trying to understand certain things about me, simply because I was able to understand things at a fast rate. My mind is a lot more intelligent than most people. And for me, I have certain sensitivities, but the thing is with that, I don't butt into people's businesses. But the thing is, my relatives had things that were stolen from them. And when it comes to that stuff, when it comes to licenses and things like that, you have to be very careful. See, I have some books here that I'm going to pretty much show and I'm going to explain. So I had done a lot of heavy research on this artificial intelligence. Besides artificial intelligence, I did a lot of heavy research on the TV, phone, and internet system. That's Verizon, that's Optimum, that's AT&T or T-Mobile in the past when I was younger and then now. And there's a lot of things that goes on in the government that they don't really explain to a lot of people that are middle class or common sense folk. And they need to make it simple as possible. You can't hide, and it explains this in the Holy Scriptures. You cannot hide information from the public. You have to give people information. It's like, as an example, the First Amendment. You have the right to freedom of speech. Now, the problem is nowadays with this freedom of speech, news organizations like to manipulate this freedom of speech to improve ratings and to improve profit when they should be biased. They should just state facts and then let the public make a decision on what they feel is right and what they feel is wrong. And that's how some of these organizations, no offense, but there's certain things that there's a hidden wall between a lot of this stuff, and if you're not educated, you're not going to know the facts. And when it comes to this TV, phone, and internet, and it even comes with this online system, you guys are just expecting to just flip artificial intelligence, and it just doesn't work like that. So this book is a dictionary book. I've had this book for a very long time. I studied software. I studied hardware. I studied programming. I studied a variety of things. So there were certain programs that at a young age I set up, and I had not given, but I have records of. And I made sure, when I was with my relatives or myself, I made sure they were patented and they were licensed. And the thing is, with a lot of this stuff that I'm going to explain, I need to explain it to certain people because they need to be aware of it. So my family likes to respect boundaries. See, here's the thing where I do butt in on certain things. If something belongs to me, if something is in trust to me, or I have the right to it, I'm going to just take it. I'm not going to be a person to be forgiving on certain things. I can forgive on certain conclusions of certain things, but if there are businesses or things that are supposed to be given to me by my relatives, then you need to give them to me, and you cannot hold them. Because what you're committing is fraud. And that's one thing I do not tolerate. So when I was in college, I followed a variety of religions. I followed Christianity, Judaism. I read half a dozen of these books on the Torah. I even read books on the Quran. And I have relatives, you know. I have certain relatives that they practice. And you have to understand something when it comes to this stuff is some of you guys don't understand or comprehend is that once it belongs, it's in. My relatives had things that were in trust. They were given. They were required to be given to me for a reason, because they are things that belong to me. Besides those things that were my relatives' things that were supposed to be in trust to me, I have my own things besides that. I have businesses and things besides that. And there are people that do not understand how these people that are my relatives do not like playing games. So when you guys steal from relatives of mine, we don't play games. We will take you to court. We will indict you. And that's just as simple as that. You get caught stealing, you go to jail or prison. The conclusion of this statement that I'm about to say nicely is those people that are my relatives do not tolerate baloney. And some of you guys think that I'm just talking for the sake of talking, and I just don't talk for the sake of talking. I'm not that type of person. You guys don't understand that I can be a real nice person. But when I was in college and I did certain things for certain organizations, Those organizations did not play games with people like you. And when you create incidents like cybersecurity attacks, or you go into Vegas and you commit you steal people's identity or steal people's licenses or people's information, and you just open up accounts, or you try and launder money, or you steal from certain people, they're not going to be very forgiving. And I just want to, it's not as a, this is a warning to you guys, because you guys are not taking this stuff seriously. Those people that live in those other countries like Europe, they're related to me. My relatives had to have their names changed for a reason. Now, I am allowed to explain this because my relatives are respecting me, and I'm respecting them, because I don't butt into their business. And what you guys did when this pandemic went on is horrific. You just don't steal from people and think you're going to get away with it. And that's what I did. See, in those Ivy League schools, when I was there, those professors, those administrators, they sat me down and they explained what a lot of you companies are doing. And you're trying to put threats, you're trying to intimidate and bully a lot of people. And those people do not, I'm being honest with you, they do not tolerate that nonsense. It's unacceptable with them. And when you guys are trying to push stuff that is computer generated, and I'm sorry to say this, as somebody that has been studying this since teenage years, you guys do not have the resources. So I'm going to explain this. When I was upstate, and they had me go, I was at Cornell University. When I was up there, I was away. I went away one time, and I went away the second time. They sent me up there, and I had to go over to Harvard University. And there were certain things that some of my relatives had problems taking one code and putting it into another code to make apps. And see, the thing is, you guys don't have, when you guys say, we're going to go artificial intelligence, you don't have the resources. And I'm really saying this abruptly. You cannot just flip a switch on and think that everything is just going to work, because it just doesn't work like that. And there are many of my older relatives that are professors. They're heavy hitters, and they have explained this thousands of times to big companies that you guys are playing God, and God doesn't like that stuff. I'm being very nice with this, because once you guys go to that level where you flip the switch on, you're not going to be able to fix anything. That's why you guys are having problems with this Bitcoin incident, because you guys do not have the resources. You cannot. Now, I'm saying this in sincerity, because the FDIC and the commercial banking law has strict rules. It's an example with this ATM baloney scale. You cannot say it's an act of God if you have problems with those machines. You have to have a physical security officer or somebody that is licensed and operated to physically go out to that machine and physically check to make sure nobody is putting skimmers in those machines. Those were explained to me specifically in the AmeriCorps, and when I was an armed security officer or armed security guard. That's their responsibility. They have to sit there and essentially see a person. There has to be a person that's a technician to physically check that machine. You guys haven't been doing that. Now that's just a small scale. Now you want to put artificial intelligence into a computer system and expect everything to run, and it's not going to work. Perfect example. I see on the YouTubes, I don't like criticizing, but you guys want to use the self-driving vehicle. You think that all of a sudden you're going to flip the switch. You want the self-driving vehicle to just hit a button and go. It's not going to work like that. They tried it in Google. And I'm sorry to say that I was explained this by a relative of mine that was in Texas. Google tried to do it, or Alphabet Land tried to do it. They tried to build it, and they got laughed at because the computer system cannot handle certain things. You have to have people to be able to be hands-on, and that's the problem. You guys, with the biggest thing that cybersecurity experts and computer engineers and computer science majors have explained to a lot of these people, and they're older than me. These people are in their 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they have explained this to me, is that you guys don't have the resources to be able to maintain certain things. You're not thinking logically. You're just thinking that you're just going to flip a switch on and everything will be copacetic. And another thing is, you guys have to have regulations in regards to this stuff with technology, and you guys don't have regulations. Commercial banking has the UCC section, which is the universal, which is the UCC, which is the Uniform Commercial Code. That has to go with contract law. And there are things that explain with legal tender, which is currency, which has to get backed by certain things. You guys expect blockchain, which is an algorithm system, which I'm sorry to say this to a lot of you guys. When I was in this cybersecurity programs, a lot of the people, they didn't have to they just had basic programming or they knew certain things. They could just use some of these people were just using ChatGPT, putting it in the system and just hacking it. And that's how easy that's how easy things are able to be done. Now, I'm very old school where I annotate certain things. Now, I have given these resources to certain people so we don't have attacks happen. But you guys don't understand that there are certain things that you don't have the resources to do, and you don't have the technology to fix it. And you're just you're putting a Band-Aid on an open wound, and you just think everything's just going to be copacetic. And that's where you guys are completely wrong. Most people, no offense, and I say this with utmost sincerity, and it goes even with, besides the banking businesses, it goes with the insurance businesses. They don't want nothing to do with it. They don't want nothing to do with this artificial intelligence. Because when I did heavy internships at certain financial institutions, certain banking institutions, I did certain things for. I'm not going to name these companies because I don't want to not embarrass them, but I don't want to affect their company. But a lot of these businesses, or a lot of these commercial businesses, or a lot of these businesses that have to deal with insurance and banking, they don't have the resources to be able to fix certain things. See, when I took my CPA exam and the CMA exam, that has to do with becoming an accountant. The CMA exam has to do with becoming a managerial accountant. The CPA exam has to do with becoming just a regular accountant. But you have to have a certain amount of credits. You have to have a certain amount of years in a company to be able to get that license, which I was able to get that license at that time. But the thing is, some of those things, they're trying to change, where they want you to be able to be a programmer. They want you to take more computer years. And that costs a lot of money. The second thing is that a lot of these people don't understand is cybersecurity experts and many of these accountants, especially lawyers too, they don't have the resources to be able to be spending another year or another 2 or 3 semesters in a college where they just want to get their degree and get a job, because you're making it ridiculous. So these are certain things that you guys got to keep into account. You guys need to have laws. You have to have regulations for certain rules. And if you don't have it, you don't have the resources, you can't set things up. It's just common sense. And it's as an example. Some guys they just don't. Some of these guys that are in certain businesses, they don't understand that. And they just want to push things through, and you can't do that in business. That's just not how life is. And you can't manipulate people, and that's what you guys are doing, and it's wrong. Because you do not, and I'm repeating this 50 billion times because I went to college for this. You guys do not have the resources. You do not have the laws to be able to do certain jobs. And you need to have the people to do it, and you need to have the laws to be able to be done. And if you do not have those things, it's like, as an example with Bitcoin, you cannot have things online. Accountants, lawyers, financial people, they need things in paper, because how are they able to explain certain things to a director of an organization? You can't just say, I have this information on this phone here. I have this information on this phone. You need to have physical papers because they have to explain it to shareholders. And you do not, and some of you guys, you hide stuff, and it's completely unacceptable. That's why they have a big thing in the financial degrees and the accounting degrees and everything in general when it comes to Enron. Because all you're doing is you're creating a worse scandal of Enron, and it's ridiculous. So thank you guys. Have a good day.